They mocked her for having dirty hands. Then a billionaire's convoy crashed, and hers were the only hands fast enough to save his son. Smoke poured from the crushed hood, metal groaning against the rail. 9-year-old Daniel Coleman coughed, pinned by a jammed seatbelt. Bodyguards yanked the door. It wouldn't move an inch. 100 meters off, Grace Williams heard the crash and ran. 15 oil-stained coveralls, a wrench still in her back pocket. "Move," she said, sliding under the frame before anyone argued. Her fingers found the buckle pin every other hand had missed. Smoke thickened. Daniel's eyes fluttered. Fuel hissed near the engine. Grace twisted the wrench once hard. The buckle finally gave. She hauled the boy free as the dashboard lights died out. Bodyguards pulled Daniel clear, coughing, alive because of her hands. If underdog stories hook you, tap subscribe, then keep watching. Richard Coleman stared at the girl who'd saved his son. "Who are you?" he asked. Grace only wiped her palms on her coveralls. 3 months earlier, nobody at Coleman Junction had known her name at all. She was just Sam's niece, the girl who wore grease like other girls wore lip gloss, who other apprentices treated as a joke at best. Her mother, Ruth, had taught her the difference between a stripped bolt and a stuck one before Grace turned 10 years old. Ruth was gone now, a fever 3 winters back, but her voice still lived in every engine Grace opened. Grace's Uncle Samuel ran the roadside garage on Coleman Junction, patient with customers, patient with grief, patient with a niece who refused to quit. Get a manicure, customers laughed, watching her hands disappear into an engine block. Grace never once looked up from the work. Across the road stood Coleman Motors gleaming under company banners, where senior mechanic Marcus Bailey wiped his hands on a cloth he refused to dirty. Uncle Sam's garage is where cars go to die, Marcus liked to say, loud enough for Grace to hear every single time. One Tuesday, a taxi driver's engine seized outside Coleman Motors. Marcus diagnosed it wrong twice, charging for parts the car never needed. Grace, walking past with a delivery, glanced under the hood for 4 seconds and said, "Your timing belt slipped. That's all it is." Marcus laughed her off in front of the driver until the belt was replaced and the engine purred like nothing had happened. The driver tipped Grace instead of Marcus. Marcus's smile didn't move, but something behind his eyes went cold and sharp. That night, Samuel counted coins at his workbench, the garage's rent notice pinned above him like a countdown clock. "Coleman Motors wants this whole junction," Samuel muttered. "Every year they raise what we owe until we can't pay it." Grace didn't understand business, but she understood engines, and she understood that giving up wasn't in her mother's toolbox. She started fixing cars after school for half price, building a small, loyal crowd who trusted her hands over Marcus's polish. At school, classmates called her Grease Girl and held their noses when she walked by, dirt permanently pressed into her knuckles. Grace stopped washing her hands raw, trying to please them. Instead, she wrote her mother's old repair notes into a battered notebook every night. Then came the letter. Coleman Motors had bought the land beneath Samuel's garage, giving him 90 days to close or be removed. "We'll find somewhere else," Samuel said, though his voice cracked on the word somewhere, like he didn't quite believe it. Grace walked to Coleman Motors that afternoon and asked to see whoever was buying up junctions. Marcus laughed her out the door. She didn't argue. She simply memorized the name stitched onto every uniform in that building, Coleman. Weeks passed. The notice on Samuel's door counted down. Grace kept working, kept learning, kept refusing to let her hands go soft. Then, on an ordinary Thursday, walking home past the bridge road, she heard tires screech and metal fold like paper. That was the crash. The one where Daniel Coleman sat trapped, and Grace's hands, the ones everyone mocked, were the only ones fast enough. Which brings us back to the roadside, smoke still curling upward. Richard Coleman staring at the girl who wouldn't give him her name. "I asked who you are," he repeated. "I'm the mechanic who fixes what your company breaks," Grace said, and turned to leave. She didn't get far. A hiss rose from the crumpled hood. Sharp, wrong, the unmistakable sound of fuel finding a spark. "Fire!" a bodyguard shouted, backing away. Richard grabbed for Daniel again, but the boy's jacket had caught on the twisted doorframe. Grace turned back without being asked. She'd heard that hiss before. A cracked fuel line, seconds from catching properly. "Everybody back now," she said, already moving toward the smoke instead of away from it, the way her mother once had. She found the line by touch alone, memory guiding her fingers faster than her eyes could in the haze. One clean twist of her wrench pinched the line shut, starving the spark of the fuel it needed to become a fire. The hiss died, the smoke thinned. Daniel's jacket came free with one hard pull, and the boy stumbled safely into his father's arms. Silence fell over the wreck, the kind of silence that follows a disaster that almost happened, but didn't. Richard Coleman looked at Grace's hands, still black with grease and now steady, and finally understood what he was looking at. "You saved him twice," he said quietly. "Once from the crash, once from what came after." Grace shrugged. "It's just an engine," she said. "Engines are honest. They only lie if the person fixing them doesn't know what they're doing." Richard asked her name properly this time. "Grace Williams," she said. "My uncle owns the garage across from your dealership, the one you're closing." Something shifted in Richard's face. Recognition, maybe shame, maybe both, as the pieces of the last 90 days fell into place. He looked toward Coleman Motors, then back at the girl whose hands had just saved everything that mattered to him. 2 days later, Richard Coleman walked into Samuel's garage himself, still in his tailored suit, out of place among the oil drums. He tore up the eviction notice in front of them both. "This junction stays exactly as it is," he said. "Every part of it." Then he turned to Grace. "Coleman Motors is opening an apprentice engineering track. I want you as the first name on the list." Marcus Bailey stood in the doorway, rag still in hand, and for once had absolutely nothing clever left to say. Grace didn't gloat. She simply held out her grease-stained hand, and after a long pause, Marcus shook it. Word spread through the junction fast. The girl they'd mocked for dirty hands had saved a billionaire's son and her uncle's garage. The classmates who'd held their noses started asking her to look at their family cars instead, notebooks out, actually listening now. Grace kept her mother's repair notebook in her back pocket, beside her wrench, a little heavier now with everything she'd learned. She still came home every evening with grease under her fingernails, and she still didn't scrub it away before dinner. Some things she'd learned were worth wearing exactly as they were, proof of work that mattered, not something to hide. Samuel watched his niece from the workbench some nights, saying nothing, just smiling the way her mother used to. The lesson traveled faster than any of them expected. It was never the softness of a person's hands that measured their worth. It was what those hands were willing to do for someone else, and Grace's had already done more than enough. Thank you for staying with her story all the way to the end. If it moved you, there's another tale waiting for you next.